Thanks so much for staying around on today's Talking Solutions. I'm your host, Terry Springs, in the studio with us for the whole hour today, talking about a very important subject, pedestrian safety, and I can't think of a better expert than Erin Breen from the Vulnerable Road Users Project. By the way, among the things we will cover, some new laws affecting you as a driver, things about bicyclists, and people out walking. Erin, before the break, we were talking about what impact it has on the life of a driver who actually strikes someone.
You kill somebody, it's going to change your life forever.
You're going to dream about that for the rest of your life.
Forever. Metro does a training where they bring in a national group to do reconstruction. It's a gentleman by the name of Rusty Haight, and he's a pretty famous dude. So the first time I went to Rusty's training, he has weighted dummies. And the male weighs 185 pounds, the female weighs 120 pounds, and now he has a kid that weighs 85 pounds. They suspend those dummies on a street, and then they take cars that are already wrecked and they run them into the dummies to reconstruct the crash. The sound, literally, yeah, exactly that. And it was years ago the first time I went, and it still makes me sick. I just can't imagine it really happening.
You notice I flinched. I physically flinched when I thought of what that would be.
Yeah. Then we have the whole issue, it's truly man's inhumanity to man. The number one person in a hit-and-run crash is a pedestrian, because you don't do enough damage to the vehicle to stop it so it can't run. So the number one people leaving the scene of a crash is a pedestrian, and then a bicyclist, and then a motorcyclist. There's a new law going into effect about that, because most often that person's impaired, and if the cops can't find him immediately, then some slick lawyer gets him off.
You didn't do enough damage by hitting that person.
So you can leave.
So I should run and try to get away from it.
And they leave, they don't call for help. It's just sad. We were in Carson City for a conference, actually testified in person on that bill. While the testimony was being taken in Carson, Metro was down here working a hit and run of a 14-year-old girl on her way to school. That some drunk driver, and they knew he was drunk because they retraced his steps through the night, but they couldn't prove it because he had any kind of a defense. If you can't get actual evidence immediately, then a slick lawyer is going to get him off for DUI. They get charged with hit and run. So that's why we wanted to raise the penalty for hit and run. And, sadly, a lot of our laws, that's how they came about. There was and it's still so vivid, 13-year-old boy at Bonanza and Eastern went to Roy Martin Middle School, and he was crossing the street to go pick up his younger sibling at elementary school. He pushed the button and he waited for the signal, and he got the walk signal, and he stepped into the crosswalk, and a truck driver killed him, making a right-hand turn. In the paper the next day, the law enforcement, the fatal investigator, was quoted as saying that he asked the driver, "Didn't you see the young boy?" And that the driver said, "Well, yes, but I thought he'd stop for me."
What?
Yeah. Well, I'm driving a big truck, so you would stop for me, right? So when I saw that fatal investigator again, because the guy was charged with failure to yield, and he was my friend, the fatal investigator, and I went off on him. How could you allow that to happen? That was my first introduction to what it's like as an EMS person to have to run on a call, especially when it's a child. And man, this mild-mannered guy got right in my face and started yelling back at me, "Give me something to charge him with." I can just remember being so shocked, going, "What?" He said, "I have nothing to charge him with. He wasn't impaired, so he got charged with failure to yield because that's all I've got." That started us on a journey for misdemeanor manslaughter. And so there is a law now. It took us 3 sessions to get it.
And lives in the process.
And yeah. So the penalty is the $1,000 fine, and they could send you to jail for 6 months. And our intention was not, if you're a driver who makes a bad mistake, we don't want to lock you up, but we want the victim to have some recourse, to think that something more than a citation happened to you. That's how that started. And now we have the Vulnerable Road Users Bill, that you don't have to kill somebody. If you're a driver and you're the proximate cause, if you're the cause of hitting a pedestrian or a bicyclist, it's the same. It's a $1,000 fine, and they could send you to jail for 6 months. Just trying to get motorists to pay attention to vulnerable road users. And now we have the hit and run law, which I believe goes into effect October 1st. And we have a couple other new pedestrian laws that people should pay really close attention to that do go into effect October 1st. And that is in a school zone or a school crossing zone, along those streets where kids travel to school, and it could be any street. So if it's a school crossing zone, you'll see that it does have flashing lights. In those areas, when they're flashing, so when they're active, no U-turns, just flat prohibited in a school zone or a school crossing zone. We're trying to cut down the potential conflict in half, because that's what that does. But the big one, and the one that people are going to find really hard to live by, is no passing another car, so that the speed is set by the most prudent driver. Because what we see is people slow down, but they won't really slow to 15, or they'll slow to 15 and then slowly creep up. Now, all law enforcement has to do is see you pass another vehicle in one of those zones. And that's a school zone, school crossing zones. Those are double penalties,
That's the big ticket.
That's a big tickie. So, and again, it's just trying to save lives. It blows my mind how hard things like that are to pass. I've been called a nanny stater more times than I can count. But I just want to say to people, seriously, if the life that's saved is someone you loved, what are you going to think of me then? That's what makes this such an awesome job, because I have the opportunity both to get incredibly frustrated, but to do great things.
Erin Breen is with us today on Talking Solutions, and she's got to do with the Vulnerable Road Users Project. Look, I don't care what kind of consequences they lay on the person who hits a pedestrian and then runs from the site.
Right.
Throw the book at them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think probably the biggest high profile one we just had was the bus crash at Maryland Parkway in Sahara, where the impaired driver, there was a bus lane and the setback, and still came on the sidewalk and killed the grandma and the little girl and took off.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, not enough damage to his car to stop it. But thankfully, in that case, there were witnesses that went after them.
Yeah.
And so they got them right away. I agree. I think you should get locked up. Throw away the key. If you're willing to do that. We had legislators in the hearing say, well, what if people just panic?
Okay, that would seem normal.
Yeah, so what if they panic? That's not an excuse to leave someone for dead in the street. I'm sorry.
And sometimes people do panic and then come right back.
Yeah. Well, they were saying, well, if someone has been convicted of DUI in the past, we think that that should be part of the law, that in order to be charged, you have to, basically what we've done is we've raised the penalty to be equal with a DUI with death or substantial bodily harm. Because we had incentivized you as a drunk driver to leave the scene. If they couldn't catch you, you weren't going to get charged with DUI. You're just going to get caught with failure to render aid and leaving the scene. So it was almost smarter, which is just so sad. Now it's not. But I was dumbfounded in hearings when legislators said, if they've been charged before and been convicted of DUI, then you could assume that they were drunk. It's like, well, it's not just about being drunk. It's about being a human being. You should have stricter penalties if you leave the scene of a crash when you've caused death or substantial bodily harm. And we've had some horrific high-profile cases where that's happened. That crazy woman that hit the grandfather pushing the baby carriage.
Oh, yes. Rainbow near Warm Springs.
Yes. So, see, it sticks in your mind, doesn't it? And you're not in my business.
Yeah.
It's like every one of them stick in my mind. Every single one. And probably I take it far too personally. It makes me a little crazy. Any of the crashes, but especially the hit and runs. And, I can't imagine being one of those EMS people. The fatal teams for all the law enforcement agencies and the ambulance drivers and the paramedics and the firefighters and the REACT team and all of those people. How do they sleep for the next week? And then they have to relive it over and over and over again in court because you're trying to fight the charge. If we all just took responsibility to start with.
I know, that's a big dream, isn't it?
If we all, when we got behind the wheel of the car or we left on our two little feet. And, another thing, and I really have to say this before I run out of time, as a pedestrian, you can't wear gray and navy blue and black. You have no idea how much you blend in with the road.
I'm wearing a black outfit at night, and I'm going in a non-crosswalk area.
Right. Truthfully, at the speeds that we have in Clark County, the driver has no time to see you and react when you're dressed in white. So we tell pedestrians at night, you got to carry flashlights, bright lights, light yourself up. Give a driver at least 100 yards yards to see you, because at the speeds that our roads are, it requires 100 yards, the length of a football field, for them to see you, have their brain tell their foot to move off the gas and to the brake, and then the stopping distance of the car. Literally plan on a football field's length. So many times people are not aware that you can't see them and they don't understand stopping distance. We have a new program that we're just starting. If you get a citation, if you're the driver or a pedestrian and you get cited in Clark County and you go to justice court, they're going to give you the opportunity as a pedestrian to have your fine waived and as a driver to have your fine reduced if you come to a class that we have put together with a lot of the partners. It was written by myself and Nadia Fulkerson from School of Medicine at the Trauma Center. It's being taught by Metro, NHP, volunteers, Sherry Bush, who lost her son in a crash. So we have a variety of different people. Arcadio Bolanos from Academy for Human Development is going to do the Spanish classes, and there's a lot of partners involved in the class. As a driver, it's going to cost you $20 to come to our class, and as a pedestrian, it'll be free. And we're going to take the $20 from the drivers and buy lights and reflective stuff to give to the pedestrians when they come to class, because a lot of them just don't have the means. It would be the difference between eating or having a light. So
well, they're walking in the first place, so I'm going to think that, yes, for fitness and health, that's a wonderful thing, but in a lot of cases, I don't think the people who are out there on foot as pedestrians have any option.
No, the walking commuters, they're doing that. It makes cops so angry when I say this, but for years I have said, when you hand a pedestrian a jaywalking ticket, which is my least favorite word, you're really handing them a warrant for their arrest, because if they could pay that ticket, they wouldn't be walking. So this is a way now for them to be able to not have it go to a warrant for their arrest, because they just have to go to court and come to class and they won't have any out-of-pocket expenses. And, that took a lot of people, including the judges, to be on board. It also took the district attorney's office, and I was doing an event with Metro at the end of February, and Steve Wolfson was there, and he came up to say, what are we going to do? Because fatalities were so out of control. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I have a meeting with Judge Bonaventure this week, and we're pushing this class program. And Steve instantly said, tell him I'm in 100% support of this. Then we went and talked to the judge, and it took a long time. It took months. We're just now getting to where it's starting. But when we presented it to all the judges, the DA was in the audience, so it kind of had come full circle. It took a lot of people to say, yes, we will support this, because it's bending the rules. But sometimes to save lives, that's what you got to do, is bend some rules.
Erin Breen is in with us today on Talking Solutions. We're discussing pedestrian safety. I think a lot of this also is awareness. As drivers, as individuals, we just need to be aware of what we're doing and what we're not doing.
Well, and Terry, it is being aware not just of the pedestrian, but of every road user. And, we're so distracted as drivers. The cell phone is just the bane of traffic safety. And I don't know what the solution is, because, again, no one thinks it's them. And they think that they're able to multitask and, I'm good at this. I can do this. No, you can't. The reality is the law in our state that says that you can talk on your phone as long as you have both hands on the wheel, I don't think we'll ever change it. And how did that happen in a span of 20 years? I was one of the last holdouts for cell phones because I lived with a beeper for so many years, and I just consider a cell phone a better leash. How did we go from having free time to literally being wired into anybody who wants you 24/7, no matter if you're driving a car, literally, and just, fill in the blank, whatever things you've been doing, and it's been ruined by a cell phone. It's really ruining traffic safety. And it's people walking with their face on their phone. It's people driving with their face on their phone. And it's a bad combination. We're losing pedestrians because they're not paying attention. Not only do they have their face on their phone, but they have earbuds in their ears.
Yep, they got the earbuds, so they're not hearing what's going on.
They can't see, they can't hear. But the same thing happens behind the wheel. It's the cognitive impairment. It's not the physical one hand off the wheel. The average time they've proven how much more dangerous a driver is with a cell phone than drunk, which is just crazy. Isn't that crazy? Because your eyes are off the road for an average of 5 seconds. You don't realize it because you're looking up and down. And I say to people, in 5 seconds, at 40 miles an hour, at 66 feet a second, do you realize you've traveled a football field? Would you close your eyes and do that? And people look at you like you have 12 heads. Of course I wouldn't close my eyes and do that. Well, okay, that's what you're doing.
Kind of works that way.
Yeah, but we don't ever realize that because it's never going to be us. So no matter what mode of travel, the bicyclists, we've lost 8 bicyclists this year. I don't remember that ever happening. Rich Strader from Metro, he said he doesn't remember that ever happening. And, we have several months to go. And with bike fatalities, it's most often the driver's fault, not the cyclist. We don't see the alcohol issues that we see in pedestrians. It's almost like the complete antithesis. It's simply drivers not paying attention. So we have and I hate to just keep throwing out all these laws, but boy, if you don't know them, listen to this program today and you're going to learn a lot about vulnerable road user laws. We have a law in the state of Nevada that says that you have to give a cyclist 3 feet. And really what it says is if you're on a multi-lane street and you have the ability to, you have to pull into an adjacent lane.
It's their lane.
Exactly.
That's what the law says.
Exactly. If it's not possible to pull into that adjacent lane, you have to be as far to the edge of the lane as you can. Because if you've never ridden a bike and had a 45-mile-an-hour car go past you, the vortex of that car, it sucks you in. How dangerous is that? So here we are encouraging people, get out and walk, get out and bike, get out, and then we kill them in record numbers. It kind of is detrimental to our initiative to get people moving.
This should be a city, and our weather should be a place where it would be a great place to be a bicyclist. But it's not. The city and the roads are not built to accommodate bicyclists.
No. And speaking of the city, I would also be remiss if I didn't give kudos to the city of Las Vegas, because boy, are they trying. And in every way, they're lovely green bike lanes downtown. You'd be crazy to use a car downtown, really. Blocks are short, the streets are narrow, the speed is low, there's accommodations for everybody. It makes you want to live there. And it could happen in other places. It just takes will. The thing that people don't realize is if these kind of issues are important to you, contact the people that you elected on a local level and on a state level and voice your opinion. We don't have to get where we're going at 50 miles an hour. We could plan ahead and give ourselves a little more time and make it safer for everyone. Alcohol-related crashes, drug-impaired crashes, seeing an increase again. It's just crazy to me. How does that happen? And it happens with complacency. People think, again, it's not going to be me. Plan ahead, people. Take responsibility for yourself. And the whole zero fatality goal, I've had a lot of people give me grief about that's an impossible goal and why would you ever set that? I love to say to people, what's the goal at your house? They can tell you that they think a good goal is 100 or 50 or whatever number they think is acceptable, which is mind-boggling to me. But when you bring it home and say, how about people you love? How many people that you love is it okay to die this year?
You wouldn't mind having one of your family members be part of that smaller number that you're okay with?
Yeah. And of course, people go, oh, no, the number's 0. Well, so how can it be 0 at your house and have the goal not be 0 everywhere? And then my next question is, and so what's your plan? And then people really look at you like, what? Well, do you reach goals without a plan? So everybody in your house, you have to have a plan for how everybody gets home at the end of the day safely, no matter how you're traveling. If you're driving or you're walking or you're biking or you have a motorcycle or you're driving with someone else or you're taking public transportation, you have to have a plan for how you keep yourself alive. It requires everybody having a plan and doing the right thing.
We could do this. It seems like a big issue,
right?
To say, well, we're going to get rid of all these fatalities on the roads. But it shouldn't be that hard. It should just be all of us paying attention.
Absolutely. Personal responsibility. We had an awesome event this year where we brought walking commuters in with engineers and with law enforcement and media and had an open conversation about what it's like for each of them. What I want you to know, and the drivers are like, here's how I feel. We need that kind of dialogue, and we need to understand or empathize. We have what we call the 4E approach to a safe community, which is engineering, enforcement, education. The 4th one was emergency medicine because that golden hour. But really the 5th one has to be empathy. And I hate to come up with new slogans, but if we all took into consideration the other guy, and again, no matter what, do you want people to treat you that way? And it's so simple. It's just so simple, and we just don't seem to be able to do it.
Be considerate.
Yeah.
Have some compassion. That person who's out walking, who is most vulnerable to your vehicle, they may not have any option. They may have to walk. They may have to ride the bus and run across the street to get done what they need to get done.
Right.
Can we just take a second or two and give them a little rope and give them a chance to achieve what they need to do?
Exactly. They're just trying to live their lives the same way you are. And we are so fast to condemn them so fast. And unfairly so in many, many, many cases. But again, if you are the pedestrian, ultimately your life is in your hands. And we do these enforcement waves with the crazy costumes.
I love those at the holidays.
Yes.
You got a leprechaun for St. Patrick's Day, a turkey before Thanksgiving.
We do. And Santa Claus. We have the Crosswalk Crusader program. As a driver, if you don't see a guy in a red velvet Santa suit or a gold lame turkey costume or a Kelly green shiny leprechaun suit, what chance does the average Joe have crossing the street? Last week we had a police officer in uniform with a bright yellow vest on top of his uniform, and still 77 tickets in a not great period of time written on Valley View Boulevard. And every driver says, I didn't see him.
What were you doing?
Yeah, it's your job to see them. That's the thing. It's your job as a motorist. And that's another thing where speed comes to play that people just don't realize. The faster you go, the narrower your field of vision. So at 30 miles an hour, you have the time and the ability to see the whole expanse and the people waiting on the side of the road. There's still jerk drivers that are going to pass them by. But the crazy thing is that some of those people who say I didn't see them, they really didn't, because they were going so fast that their field of vision was so narrowed that the sidewalks didn't exist. We got to take those things into consideration when we're building streets.
Why are we in such a rush to live our lives at a high speed? Why can't we just take a moment and enjoy today?
That's so true. Yeah.
We need to relax. We're a little too stressed out. We're hurrying too much. Yeah. And I understand the whole pedestrian safety issue is enough to stress anyone out. I get that.
Yeah.
But there's got to be things that we can do. And I think the most important thing is to have awareness and concentrate. Realize that that vehicle that you're driving is a monster tank when it comes up on a person.
Right. It's a weapon. Yeah.
I would never want to use a weapon on another person.
Right. 99.9% of the population wouldn't want to. They just don't ever stop to think the situations that they could get themselves in. And I say this over and over, and we put it in campaigns time and time again. I think our very first one was a real close-up of this guy's face, and emblazoned across his forehead, it said, kill a pedestrian, it stays with you forever.
Yeah.
Or hit a pedestrian, because even that would stay with you forever. And then we did one with a girl lying in the street with a guy standing over her with a horrific look on his face, and it said, can you live with yourself if you hit me? The whole idea behind both of those was it didn't matter whose fault it was.
It's the aftermath and the consequences.
Exactly. And the Crosswalk Crusader, his slogan is saving pedestrians one step at a time. And I don't know if you've seen those bus shelters. They're very bright yellow, and the biggest message in them is slow down. It's the Crosswalk Crusader. And of course, the kids love him. He was meant to be multi-age, but adults, I guess it's the cool factor or something. I don't know. We had really hoped that the Crosswalk Crusader would appeal to adults as well, to try to make them think a little more. And I still have that hope. He's still somebody that we're using all the time, and you certainly don't want to be going against the beliefs of the Crosswalk Crusader. They're a big superhero. So it's a multifaceted business.
I just hope that our discussion on pedestrian safety today, at least top of mind awareness.
Right.
We just need to pay attention. We've got so many distractions in the car between the cell phone, which, by the way, I put my purse in the back seat.
That's good.
And the phone is in
tempted.
the back.
Yeah.
Also helps in the summer so that you don't forget the ice cream that's back there, too. There's a lot of good things about that. But cell phone in the back. We have all of these wonderful, they call it the connected car.
Right.
We've got internet service that you can get in some of the newer cars.
Why would you need that?
Well, because it's the latest thing. That's why we need that.
But it's just crazy. You are behind the wheel of a car. I just, when they came out with the video system, the first videos, the screens were up front. And then within a year or so, you saw that, no, they were behind the driver.
Yeah, put the DVD for the kids in the back seat.
It's great for kids traveling.
Yeah,
sure. Even when you're looking at a map on that screen, you want the one that just talks to you and says, in 100 feet, turn right. We're wired everywhere we go, and we're distracted everywhere we go. And we're paying the consequences for that with lives. And that's just crazy. Sometimes I think that the mindset of society is that fatalities are the price we pay for the convenience of owning a car, but it does not have to be that way.
That should never be accepted.
Ever. But it kind of is. Think about that. If you're one of those people that, A, you think it will never be you or someone you love, I've just met way too many of those people, and they never in a million years thought it was going to be them. Someone that they love, because I don't meet the person who died, obviously. And here's the other thing that's crazy. It's always the most awesome people. When I meet the family afterwards, it's like I really would have liked to have known that person. That always seems to be that it's not the jerks of the world that die, it's the kind souls. There's just something so wrong with that.
We need to concentrate, especially when we're driving. We need to be aware. We need to not be distracted. And we need to keep pedestrian safety in mind.
Yeah.
It's a big effort. We're going to have to just keep talking about this.
Right.
And keep making people aware until it starts to sink in.
Yeah. I always say that with loved ones, we're inclined, as they're leaving or you're leaving, whatever, that there's always that final I love you or whatever it is as someone's going. But in reality, if we took that 10 seconds to say, put your seatbelt on or make sure you have a light if you're walking, make eye contact with drivers, that is so much more meaningful than the mindless, however you wrap up a conversation.
I give a thumbs up to people who are crossing in front of me who make eye contact.
That's great.
Absolutely. Give them a thumbs up. I'll protect them every way I can.
Right.
I would imagine that you go out with the Vulnerable Road Users Project, Erin Breen. I know you were working with school kids. Of course, school's back in session. But this is for everybody
everyone
who is out in a pedestrian-type situation, all at risk, all very vulnerable, as you say. So you go out and you talk with people. If someone's listening to us today and they were saying, I need to get her in to talk to my group.
Our website is PedSafe, PEDSAFE.Vegas. If you hit the little contact us button, it sends me an email. And there's lots of awesome materials if you're a teacher or a parent or someone who wants to know more about safety in Las Vegas for pedestrians and a little bit of bicycles because we're starting to do a little more in that area now. PedSafe.Vegas is the way for you to get information too. Unfortunately, we also have kind of a running, if you look in the media, all the stories of people that have been hit. It's a way to do some research, and we'd like to have less and less and less of that. There's a blog, and there's a couple of stories. There's a wonderful mom that does a lot of work with us, and Sherry Bush is just such a great example. Her son was 26 years old. He was 6'7" and weighed 240 pounds. So I'd love to take her in because if you tell an elementary school child someone was 6'7" and weighed 240 pounds, that's Gulliver. And kids think, well, it would be impossible for that person to be killed. But he made a mistake crossing the street. And Sherry always says that he would have gone to the intersection had he known that anywhere two streets cross each other, that pedestrians have the right of way. But even if he'd gone to the intersection, which he was pretty close to, it was a minor street. It was Riley Street, just west of Durango on Flamingo. You still have to follow the rules. So the driver, in this case, not speeding, but doing road speed, I think they think he was doing 47 miles per hour.
That's about what it is over there.
Yeah. And so Jimmy got hit, and even the doctors thought when he first came in that they'd be able to save him. But his heart was so badly bruised that it stopped. Whether you're 5 foot and 90 pounds, or you're 4 foot and 40 pounds, or you're 6'7" and 240 solid muscle. It doesn't matter when you interact with a vehicle at 45 miles an hour. I don't want to meet any more Sherrys. And I always tell kids, I'm sure your parents are really nice, but they don't want to meet me. And I'm a really nice person too, but I don't want to meet them. So we all have to have a plan and be faithful to it.
Erin Breen, I want you to be bored, and I want you to have nothing to do in your job.
Me too.
And I want to watch any kind of TV news locally for weeks and weeks and weeks and a year and never hear about a pedestrian or a bicyclist type fatality.
Me too. Honestly, it could happen.
Pay attention.
Yeah.
Concentrate. Don't be distracted.
Yep.
The thing that got me a few days ago, very, very happy to see the release of the book by Tiffany Ward.
Right.
For people who don't know her daughter's name, I know we're running out of time, but Brazil Ward is the little girl who was out trick-or-treating with her family on Halloween a couple of years ago. And somebody came through there and hit her at a high speed. I think we were all shocked that she even survived.
Miracle. She is a miracle child.
She's a hero child.
Yeah.
Love her family.
Strong people.
And for that person who hit her, who's never stepped forward, who's never been found, I want it to happen. And I believe in karma and that person's life. If you don't do what's right, there's a special place in hell for you. I'm just saying.
Especially when it comes to kids.
She got me up on my soapbox the other day because love her so much, love her family, and so proud of all of them. I don't hate that many things in this life, but that person who hit her,
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, there's not a lot that's worth the effort that takes. But yeah, somebody like that, definitely worth the effort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so glad you came in. We shouldn't wait 20 years again before we get together and talk.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. I appreciate it.
Erin Breen has been with us today for our special edition of Talking Solutions, the Vulnerable Road Users Project. I just am hoping awareness, concentration, we can put a stop to not just a lot of this, all of this.
Right. Everybody's got to do their part.
This is a great issue. An issue we want to have go away.
Yes, on many levels. I always hate to sound like things haven't gotten better because a lot of people are doing their jobs. And, the enforcement in the state of Nevada just held up as a national example of what's right. Engineering, we've come so far in this city. There's just still a lot more to go. Now we need drivers and pedestrians to do their part too.
Our turn to do it right. Erin Breen, Vulnerable Road Users Project.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Talking Solutions is a production of the Community Relations Department here at Beasley Media Group Las Vegas. Get more information on today's topic on our Talking Solutions page on Facebook, where you will also find links and a podcast of today's show. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.